Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. As always, make sure you like and subscribe and leave a comment down below and hit the bell so you get notified every time I post. I'm so sorry. I feel obliged obligated, is the right word, as a YouTuber to say that every single time I record my voice. Okay, so it's going to be about how I turn a visual character design into a character, a three-dimensional character with a backstory, a personality, motivation, all of that. So, brief disclaimer, this is about evolving the character writing wise, story wise, like I just said, not visually, but I do think visuals will come along the way because you'll add things that make sense. So, starting off with a design, we're going to be using Lily as the example here. Lily started off with this very simple design. I'll put it on screen. All I knew her Nexus Strike, which is a mechanic of My World, Project Lala. I forgot to mention, these are all characters for a game. So when you design characters for a game, you have to keep in mind simplicity, how you're going to be able to animate it, what parts you want to be able to animate, and all of that, if you want to make complex models or not. So my designs had to be very simple. So this was the concept I used, and here is the concept for her hurt design. Now, these concepts were made 10 months ago, and I'm here to share my process because what they look like now is a whole lot different than what they looked like then. So, we have our design. This design could be anything. You could literally roll a dice, pick a random hair color, skin color, eye shape, clothing style, whatever. So when I created her, my vague idea was, because this is a music-based world, right? Project Lala is a game. Music is a heavy component, and this specific game is set at a retreat for musicians. It turns out to be something it's not. So I thought she should be a jazz singer, and that's fine and all. That's our very vague, basic concept, a jazz singer that looks like this. But our problem with that is that her design doesn't read as a jazz singer. But because that's not important, and I was focusing solely on simplicity for modeling sake, I overlooked that, and I was also not a very good writer back then, if we're being quite honest. So now that you have your basic design, and you've assigned a vague concept or a detailed concept, if you're on a very, if you're on a deadline, if you have a time crunch, do not assign a vague concept. You need something that will obviously read similar to how they look or be the opposite. Like, there's probably actually not a rule here, but I think if you were to make a jazz musician, it's generally better to make them look like a jazz musician. I did that with Jay Lee. I did not do that with Lily, as you'll see in a moment. I'll explain that. So, if you have time, like I do, actually shouldn't have time. I took too much time, and that's why we're here. But at least the characters will be a lot better. Assign a vague concept. And now, what I did for Lily specifically is kind of just let her evolve. Okay, I was focusing on what my strategy here is to focus on the characters that you know things about already. Now, I had a head start on this because Jay, Kaika, Blitzy, and Frenzy, all very prominent characters in my game. I'll put their designs on screen. From their most early designs to their most recent designs, they are incredibly similar. And that is because I made their very, very original designs. I'm not going to put those on screen because I can't find them. They're somewhere else. Um, in 2018. That's not 7 years ago. I'm not old. I'm not old. What are you talking about? Anyways, so these characters have had a lot of time to marinate, and I also already had the concept. They were Jay Lee, obviously Jay and Kaika were in a jazz band. All I had to do was finish adding the two other members of the rhythm section. That'd be piano and bass. That's Sky and Saffron, who will also be on screen. So that's a very easy way to flesh out a character is by simply building them to be essentially like part of something with some other characters. Don't make a character just be a love interest. That's not a good idea. I will stand on that. But either way, um, And then Blitzy and Frenzy just kind of stayed the same because I always knew they were going to be pop. They have changed in the forms of what I'd consider pop because the world itself is not our world. It is not Earth. So there's what is popular music to them is not popular music to us. So that has changed. So with growing over time, I let my characters that I already know, that I know that I can easily develop, I let them develop first, is what I did over time. So if you look at my Unveil, shameless plug, you'll see Jay, Kaika, Saffron, and Sky all have very well fleshed out backstories. They all have a lot to them, especially Jay. There's a lot more I haven't put on there that I still need to, but they're all incredibly fleshed out. And through fleshing out these characters that I already had a much stronger concept for, I was able to expand the world building a lot. Like now I know where Jay grew up is very different from where Saffron grew up. Saffron grew up in a essentially a very wealthy family that's also very snobbish. And so she ran away to where Jay grew up, which is essentially the slums. It's called Low Haven. It's on the edge of Connect, which is the snobby people city. It's just a really big city, and people there are generally richer. And it's on the edge of 1M, which is the poor people's city, essentially. I'm dumbing this down because I haven't explained it well enough. So forgive me for that. I say all this to mean you, if you have stronger characters, much stronger characters in your world, then let their concepts build the world, help build the world around them, and that'll make it a lot easier to find out where your other characters fit in. So, I mentioned Blitzy and Frenzy. I was drawing Lily today when I realized once again she doesn't really have much to her. Like I drew her recently before this in a debut look, and then I realized, hey, what if I just make it so that she debuted as a pop artist because all of the outfits I've drawn her with, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, do not read as jazz. They read a lot closer to what would be considered pop in Connect. So I decided why not just have her debut as a pop artist? But then why would she become a jazz singer? Because I'm still sticking to that concept, by the way. I actually find that limit of having to stick to something is helpful for being more creative with the ways you can reach that. So that is something to keep in mind. Obviously, you can change it if you really want to, but I'm just stating what works for me personally. I'm not a professional. Should have said that at the beginning. So Lily debuts as a pop artist, and I thought, what if we just bully her out of it? Call her fake, call her performative, call her a cheap clone of Frenzy and Blitzy, because you know her hair kind of looks similar. Um, I'll probably put a comparison photo up or something. They both have a swirl, although Lily's doesn't cover her eyes, or rather, they all have a swirl. So she gets bullied out of music, essentially, until the main story of the game. And that would provide room, that would give her a reason to be at this musician's retreat. Because she obviously still has to be somewhat of a musician to be here. Otherwise, she wouldn't get invited. So, what if Hoshi, who is the person running this so called retreat, actually calls her in to try and see if she's willing to try it again? See if being in an environment with so many other musicians that are not ruthless fans that hate everything you do, is more conducive to like finding a personal style. And so now I have a character that now has a reason to be here. She's no longer, I mean, I guess, I don't know if she's kind of one dimensional right now, because that's not a lot to go off of. But she has a backstory now, and that's all I really need for a game. I can let her interactions evolve from what someone in that situation would do, because now I know what she's done in the past, and that will kind of help determine how she acts in the future. So the last part is really just making sure you know where they fit in that world, in that story, which obviously, like I said, that's kind of maybe I did just say that. That is kind of how I figured it out. Is how could she be a musician? Like Why does she look like this if she's a jazz musician? Like answering those questions and then finding a workaround to find out she was a pop musician. That was her place until she was bullied out of it. And that puts her into the core events of the story. And that gives her more purpose than just being an extra character to fulfill a character quota in a game. So to summarize, essentially, you have your visual design, you have a very vague concept, or a detailed one if you're on a deadline. Please don't start with a vague concept if you don't have weeks at least to let the character marinate and grow organically. Um, Once you have your concept, let them grow over time, make changes as needed. Because obviously, the more foundation you have, the easier it is to build a house. So, like I said, let your other characters grow first. If they're stronger, if you like interacting with them more, and then these other characters will feel more important as a result because they'll help the story move on. So you can stop focusing on them, keep drawing the same character over and over like I do. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Actually, don't do that. Don't draw only one character, please. Don't be like me. It's a bad example. And then you just make sure you fit in, you know where they fit into the story. And that's kind of how you finish fleshing out that character. I have no idea how well I explain this. I've never made an explaining video like this before. I'm not a professional again. Um, yeah, so if you have questions, please let me know in the comments. If you have like a good question or a question everyone's asking, if more than 5 people watch this video, then I will pin you. Because I will also answer it, obviously. Because I would like to help people learn because character design is really fun to me, writing is really fun to me, drawing is really fun to me. It's a lot more fun to do when you have a purpose behind these people that you're drawing all the time. So, anyways, that's all I really have to say. Here's the finished art of Lily. I know you didn't get to see the full speed paint, but I didn't record all of it because it took a while. So, thank you for watching. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe, please. That would be pretty helpful. I would like to pay for college at some point in the near future. Um, Thank you again. Goodbye. Have a nice day.